Hello, Math 112 fans. Going to talk about the finding plus C part, which is the thing we did in 12.4. I do want to remind you, I have my lecture notes and my review sheets have a lot of full examples of all of these things. So if you wanted to see more examples with a lot of precise details, you can see it in a couple places. Lecture notes and my review sheets. If you went to the 12.4 review sheet, you would see about 5 or 6 worked out examples with lots of details. And you could go through those yourself till you really mastered this. This is true for each one of these videos. I should have said that in the previous ones. Okay, so here are problems directly from your homework. So you've actually done this a large number of times, but I want to make sure we have it. So if someone tells you what the marginal cost is, and they tell you it's 2x plus 9, then the total cost is going to look like the integral of that. That was the thing we discussed. And so you have this, and you have this plus C piece here. So this is talking about how do we find the plus C. Now what they're telling me is that when I plug in 10, that's like my x, my total cost is 520. That's this step. So you have one additional step here, which is it's telling you what comes out when you put a certain number in, and you have to actually do it. So 520, but you've done this. I'm going to show you. You've done this lots and lots of times, but now is the moment to internalize it so you can quickly do it on a test. And then I'll show you some old test questions. So then you always have a little bit of work to do. It's not that bad, but a little bit. Okay, so this is 100. This is 90. If you watch my videos, you realize I don't like to reach for my calculator very much because I feel like it slows me down. But let's reach for it now if you want to. I'm going to do 520. Clear it here. Let me turn it on. 520. I'm getting it out of shape here. 20 minus 190. I need to move. I know I'm away from the mic. It's bad video making. Okay, I got 330. So that's it. That was the one calculation I had to do. 330 is C. Oh, it changed color too. That's our final answer. Is you put all of that together. So when you did the homework, you had to type x squared plus 9x plus 330. You can always check your work, plug a 10 in, make sure you get 550, take the derivative, make sure you get that, check, check, you know you have the right answer. Okay, let's do it again. So the next one in the homework, you were given some exponential function. Let's play the game. So we're going to integrate. The total cost is going to look like the integral of this, 86 minus 2 e to the 0.01x dx. You integrate, it's 86x. There's going to be a minus 2 over a minus 0.01. And if you're uncomfortable with 0.01s or whatever, if you really had to use your calculator, let's see. So I want to do 2 over 100th. So you might be able to anticipate it's 200. Okay, so this is 86x, and I forgot my plus c. Don't forget that. That's important. That's what the whole question's about. 200e to the negative 0.01x plus c. The fixed cost is $7,200. Now, a mistake students made on this homework question, because I answered several of these in office hours, was that they assumed that that was c. But fixed cost means the total cost when you plug in 0 is equal to this. So there's always an x and a y to plug in. So remember that when you're doing these. Given the x and y, plug them in. Okay, so we need to plug in a 0 here and a 0 here, and 7,200 needs to come out. So we need to get 0 plus 200e to the 0 plus c is 7,200. I know I'm getting into the calculator there. And that means 200 plus c is 7,200, and that means c is 7,000. And that's what you type in over here when you're all done. You write 86x, and you did this already. And again, the goal is, this course goes much easier if you make sure you don't leave that homework question until you understand it. But even now, we can get ourselves back up to speed. Okay, let's look at the next one from the homework. And I've said that I'm going to ask something like one of these on the test, so we don't want to be surprised by any of these. Let's keep going. This one, they gave us the derivative of both. So what are we going to do? So the total cost is going to look like the integral of this one. So it's going to be 3/2 x squared plus 15x plus c. And we're going to have to find that c in a second. And the total revenue is going to look like 39x minus 5/2 x squared plus c. And we're going to have to find that c. Now, what did they tell us? They told us that when you plug in 80, we should be looking for this sort of information, that this is 10,900. So we have 10,900 equals 3/2. These numbers are kind of messy. You know, on a test I might make it a little nicer. But now it's probably a good time for the calculator. So I'm going to do, I probably would just type the big chunk of this in. So 80 squared. So it's 3 times 80 squared over 2. I could have written it as 3/2. That just made more sense to me typing it in that way. So that's that number. And I would like to add 15 times 80. Okay. So this is 10,900 equals 10,800 plus c. Subtract. You get c as 100. And that's our total cost. You might say, why am I doing this? The question's about profit. Well, you're going to need total cost and total revenue in order to get profit. Plus 100. Okay, success there. Total revenue looks like this, but they did not give us an initial condition. But you always have that total revenue at 0 is 0. If you sell 0 items, 0 money comes in. You always want to think about it as plugging in. So this is 0 and this is 0 when this is 0. So you get 0 is equal to 0 minus 0 plus c. C has to be 0. So total revenue is 39x minus 5/2 x squared. So what is the profit function? Is this function minus that function. All right. So these are all the plus c. I don't even think about that as an applied question. They gave you a derivative. They asked you for the original function. There you go. What about this one? This is very similar to the quiz we had. This is an old exam question. So this is spring 23. It's asking for the a formula that gives a prime. So a of t, we need an antiderivative. It's going to be 8t minus 2t squared. I divide by 2 plus c. They told you at 1 they have the same value. So a of 1 equals b of 1. What is b of 1? Well, it's negative 1 plus 12 plus 39, which I think is 50. So they're telling me that when I plug in 1 to this, 1, I get 50. So 50 is equal to 8 minus 2 plus c. So 50 is equal to 6 plus c. So c is equal to 44. So now we have it. We have 8t minus 2t squared plus 44. You can always check these things. Plug in 1, make sure you get 44. Hopefully I did that arithmetic right, that it was 50. All right. Next one. This was from winter 19. And this question they gave, I didn't copy the whole question because some of it had to do with other things, but I want to talk about the part that's related to what we're doing here. So in that question, they gave you marginal revenue, and then later you had to figure out profit. Now they also gave average cost, but that really doesn't have to do with antiderivatives. You do have to remember that this is Q times average cost. That's probably the hardest part of this question. So you really needed to multiply times Q. That's something we've seen quite a bit before. This is probably the part people would be mad about. But I'm not talking about that in this video. In this video, I'm just talking about antiderivative stuff. So if I needed to get total revenue, which I'm going to have to get in order to get profit, I would integrate. Minus Q squared plus C. And since TR of 0 is 0, that's going to mean, in this case, C is 0. So I have the total revenue is 50Q minus Q squared. So all of these situations, when they give you marginal revenue, marginal cost, derivative of the rate, derivative of the function, antiderivative. Okay, let's look at some other tests. So here's one. And since you know I'm doing a business problem, a great thing to study would be the business examples that are like this. So here's this exact thing. So I want the total revenue I need to integrate this 0 to q dq. Let's do it. Let's put it over here. So it's going to be 7 over 0.02 e to the 0.02q plus c. Great. Now for me, I would definitely want to plug this into my calculator because I don't like 7 divided by 0.02. Let's calculate that. That's 350. Just going to make it a little easier for us to work with. 0.02q plus c. Now, if I remember right, a lot of students assumed this was 0 because they're like, well, total revenue at 0 is 0. It is true that total revenue at 0 is 0, but you have to always plug in. This is a good example of that. And we saw that in the homework. So it's telling you when you plug in 0, you should get 0. But when you plug in 0, you get 350. E to the 0 plus c is 0. But e to the 0 is not 0. So you get c is negative 350. And that's what you type in here. So this is going to be 350 e to the 0.2q. And that happened quite a few times in the homework. It's just easy to forget in the middle of doing an exam. Okay, we're going to play the game with total cost. Total cost is the integral of marginal cost. I think we can do that right away. Q cubed minus, it's going to become 6q squared plus 124q plus c. The fixed cost is 15. That means if you plug in 0, we now know that we really always want to think about plugging in that you're going to get 15. So you get 0 minus 0 plus 0, so c is 15. So then we write 1/3 q cubed minus 6q squared plus 124q plus 15. I hope that helps. That's a major part of what you're seeing on these exams. All right.